My name is Megan Holloway. I'm 34 years old. Today marks 6 months since my divorce. Or more accurately, 6 months since I put my mother-in-law in prison. She's sent me 17 letters. I opened 3, then returned the rest unopened. Brian has called me 97 times, using 13 different numbers. I haven't answered a single one. The last voicemail slipped through before I could block it. He cried for nearly 2 minutes, his voice breaking over the line. Megan, Mom's blood pressure is through the roof. The guards say she's unstable. She wants to see you, just once. She says if you come, she'll sign over all 4 properties to you. 4 houses, deeded to you, fully paid. I transcribed the voicemail, took a screenshot, and texted back 3 words, not a chance. 4 houses. The down payments on 3 of them came from company funds that were never supposed to leave the business accounts. One was $98,000. Another was $72,000. A third was $115,000. And the fourth, the worst, was deeded directly to Martha, using company money marked as year-end bonus. Except Martha was never a shareholder. She was never an employee. That's embezzlement, plain and simple. When I signed the divorce papers, Martha sat in my living room on my sofa, her feet propped on my coffee table, drinking my tea. Megan, she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction, you're a woman who can't give my son children. Marrying into this family was the best luck you ever had. That luck has run out. Sign the papers and get the hell out. I didn't argue. I pulled a pen from the drawer and signed my name on the last page. Martha snatched the papers out of my hand like she was afraid I'd change my mind. The smile that spread across her face was grotesque, every wrinkle stretching upward, her eyes crinkling at the corners as if she'd just won the lottery. All done. Now get out, she said. This house belongs to my son. You're not getting a penny. I stood up and went to the bedroom to pack. Martha followed me, leaning against the doorframe, watching me fold my clothes with the grim satisfaction of a prison guard. Her eyes lingered on the silver lockbox I kept at the back of the closet. What's in there? She demanded. Open it. Let me see. I slid the lockbox into my suitcase and looked her straight in the eye. Martha, you don't want to touch this box. Trust me. She lunged for it. I yanked my suitcase away and her fingers closed on empty air. I pulled both suitcases down the hall, past the living room, where Brian sat on the sofa watching a football game. He didn't look up when I passed. He didn't say goodbye. He just stared at the screen, his thumb scrolling through something on his phone. I stood in the doorway for 3 full seconds, waiting for something, a word, a glance, anything. Nothing. I closed the door behind me. It was 3 in the afternoon. Florida sun beat down on the asphalt, heat shimmering off the pavement in visible waves. I loaded my suitcases into the trunk and slid into the driver's seat. I cranked the AC to maximum and sat there for 3 minutes, letting the cold air hit my face, before I realized my back was drenched in sweat. But I didn't drive away. I pulled out my phone and dialed 3 numbers. 911. I want to report a crime. Commercial fraud. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law have been embezzling from a company I managed the books for. We're talking more than $300,000. I have the evidence. Bank statements, wire transfers, text conversations, recorded audio. Everything. I'm parked outside the house right now. You can come collect it directly. The dispatcher took my name, address, the company name. I answered every question without hesitation, without a tremor in my voice. I hung up and leaned back in my seat, staring at the rearview mirror. The house looked the same as it always had, gray-blue siding, white window frames. The palm tree Brian and I had planted in our second year of marriage now towering above the roofline. Martha stood on the front porch, hands on her hips, already yelling something at me that I couldn't hear through the closed windows. She thought I was hesitating. She thought I was having second thoughts. She had no idea what was coming. 30 seconds later, the first siren cut through the afternoon heat. 4 police vehicles rolled in. 1 patrol car, 3 unmarked sedans from the Financial Crimes Unit. When the red and blue lights started spinning, every neighbor on the street came out to watch. The expression on Martha's face the moment she saw those police cars parking in her driveway, I will carry that image to my grave. Her mouth fell open. Her eyes went wide. The tea mug in her hand trembled, then slipped entirely, shattering on the front step. Tea splashed across her floral print slippers, soaking the hem of her dress, but she didn't even notice. Brian burst out of the house barefoot, his sneakers still in his hands. "Megan. What the hell are you doing?" I stepped out of my car and leaned against the door, gesturing toward the silver lockbox the officers were already hauling out of my trunk. "Brian, I built your company's accounting system from scratch. I set up the online banking. I created the email account you still use to register your business documents. You really think I didn't know what was going on?" Brian made a move toward the lockbox. One of the officers stepped in his path and pushed him back. Brian stumbled, his bare heels scraping against the concrete, and slammed against the doorframe with a hollow thud. Martha found her voice then. She started shrieking. "You can't take that. That's my house. You're trespassing. I'll sue every last one of you." Monica, the lead investigator from Financial Crimes, stepped forward. She was in her 40s, with short gray-streaked hair and a badge clipped to her belt. Her voice was calm but razor-sharp. "Mrs. Walker, the plaintiff has submitted preliminary evidence that cleared the court for a search warrant. You can move aside voluntarily, or I can have you charged with obstruction. Your choice." Martha froze for 2 full seconds. Then she spun on me, jabbing her index finger inches from my face. You monster. You planned this. You've been setting me up for years." I reached up and gently pushed her finger away from my face. "Martha, you told me to sign away everything, remember? You said I wouldn't get a penny. But you forgot something. For 9 years, I poured my own money into this family. Your leaking roof? $8,000 I paid. Your son's payroll when he couldn't make his bills? Covered. My IVF treatments? $52,000 on my credit card, still accruing interest. You call this a setup? I just wrote down everything you took from me. That's all." Monica looked up from the lockbox and met my eyes for just a second. There was something in her gaze. Not pity. Respect. The evidence van pulled away. Martha crumpled onto her front steps, her floral print dress ruined, her hair a wild tangle of graying strands. She looked like a drowned hen. Brian crouched beside her, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. I climbed back into my car and pulled out of that driveway. In my rearview mirror, I saw Martha lift her head and scream something at my retreating taillights. The wind swallowed the words, but I could guess. "You'll burn in hell." Or something equally creative. 9 years. I'd heard every insult she had in her arsenal. I was immune. That night, I sat in the police station for 4 hours. Monica and her partner worked through my lockbox piece by piece. 9 years of handwritten ledgers. 5 notebooks, each one filled with dates, amounts, descriptions. June 3, 2017, Martha took eggs, $8.99. September 7, 2017, dinner I cooked thrown away, $47.23 wasted. March-June 2018, unpaid domestic labor, market value $2,160. August 14, 2019, emergency room visit, Brian did not accompany. May 2020, Martha borrowed $5,000 cash, never repaid. By the time Monica's partner finished flipping through the 5th notebook, his hands had gone still. He looked up at me, his mouth opening like he wanted to offer some kind of comfort. Then he just let out a breath and kept flipping. Then the bank statements. I'd printed the company's full transaction history, highlighted every suspicious wire transfer with fluorescent marker. Over 20 file folders, sorted by year, covering the entire conference table. Then the audio files. 27 recordings, 14 hours total. The first one from 2018, when Martha forced me to drink that herbal poison. The last one from the day I signed the divorce papers, when she told me I was a barren bitch who should just step aside. Monica finished listening to the first recording, pulled off her headphones, and rubbed her temples. Ms. Holloway, this is enough for a criminal case. And I need to be clear with you, the charges here could include money laundering and tax fraud in addition to commercial embezzlement. Your ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law are both looking at serious prison time. Are you prepared for that? Officer Monica, I said, I've been preparing for this for 9 years. She held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. She stamped my case intake form and slid a copy across the table. Case number E, 2023-0892. Megan Holloway vs. Brian Walker and Martha Walker. Charges of commercial fraud and related offenses. Case is officially opened. I walked out of the station at 1 in the morning. Florida's night air was thick and humid, clinging to my skin like a second layer of clothing. I stood on the steps beneath a buzzing streetlight, moths swirling around the bulb, and looked down at the paper in my hands. It was just a standard intake form, printed on ordinary copier paper. But my fingers trembled as I held it. I folded at the waist, bracing my hands on my knees, and laughed. Out loud, in the empty parking lot, under that buzzing streetlight. 9 years. I'd finally made it official. A lot of people ask me when I decided to fight back. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 moments stacked on top of each other, and one day the weight of them crushed the last bit of patience I had left. The first one came the day after my wedding. Brian showed me his family photo albums, 3 thick books, from his baby pictures to his college graduation, every photo annotated in his mother's neat cursive. Martha sat beside us, refilling her teacup over and over, narrating each image like a museum guide. This is Brian at 3. Isn't he precious? This is Brian at 8, second place in the citywide math competition. And this is Brian at 15, his first time speaking in church. The pastor said he was the most mature young man he'd ever met. I smiled and said, "That's wonderful." Then I brought out my own album, the one my father had made by hand, a cardboard cover scuffed and soft at the corners from years of use. Martha flipped through 3 pages, then closed it. "Oh. Your family didn't have much money, I take it? This album is really shabby." My fingers hovered over the cover. Then I smiled and said, "Yeah. We were poor when I was little." The album my mother had made for me, decorated with stickers and notes in her looping handwriting, Martha dismissed it as shabby. I didn't argue. I packed it back into the bottom of my suitcase. Later, I discovered she'd dug it out when I wasn't home and used it as a trivet for a flower pot. The pot left a ring of dried mud across my baby photo. I found that out months afterward. I told myself she was just careless, not malicious. I kept lying to myself like that for years. In my first year of marriage, I changed jobs and took a higher-paying position as a project manager. The commute was 3 hours round trip. I left at 6 in the morning and got home at 8 at night. I wanted to earn enough to move us into a bigger house, because Brian's condo had a kitchen so small I couldn't open the oven and the refrigerator at the same time. But Martha had rules. Thursday nights were family dinner nights, and I had to cook a proper meal for her and her girlfriends. Dolores and Betty, two retired ladies who never arrived empty-handed but always left with takeaway containers. The first Thursday, I made roasted salmon with asparagus and garlic mashed potatoes. I'd marinated the fish overnight, left work early to prep, and tested the seasoning 3 times. Martha took one bite. Her fork clattered onto the plate. "Megan, you call this roasted salmon? The skin is soft. You boiled this, didn't you?" "Mom, it's low-temperature roasted. It keeps the flesh moist." "Moist." She stabbed the fish with her fork, the prongs punching straight through the fillet. "I've been cooking for 40 years. I know what roasted fish looks like. This is boiled. Dolores, try it. Tell me it doesn't taste like bathwater." Dolores awkwardly picked up her fork, took a tiny bite, and said nothing. Betty followed suit, then stared down at her plate. Martha stood up, tied an apron over her floral dress, and started pulling ingredients from my refrigerator. "Let me show you what a real dinner looks like." She used every backup ingredient I'd bought, snapping off the asparagus ends, shoving my salmon aside, searing steaks in a pan that sizzled so aggressively my new non-stick surface started to peel. She made an entire second meal in my kitchen, using my groceries, and Brian ate 3 plates of it. "Mom's cooking is the best," he said, his mouth full. Martha shot me a triumphant look. "See? You don't measure up." I sat at the corner of the table. No one had set a plate for me. No one asked if I was hungry. I silently gathered the discarded salmon scraps, bagged the asparagus trimmings, and scrubbed every pan Martha had used. That night, when Brian wrapped his arms around me in bed and said, "Your cooking's just okay, babe. Don't take it personally. Mom means well," I didn't answer. I stared into the dark and thought, okay. But I opened my phone and typed the first line in my notes app, September 7, 2017, dinner thrown away. Food cost $47.23. I started logging everything after that. Every item she took, everything she said, every chore she handed me that wasn't mine to do. I wasn't planning a lawsuit. I just needed something to do in the dark hours when I couldn't sleep. Writing it down made the weight feel slightly lighter. Thursdays became Mondays and Wednesdays too. Then she got a key. Brian gave it to her, in case of emergencies. I came home to find my shoes tossed out of the hall closet and replaced with her own slippers. "Yours are too pointy. An old woman could trip." All 5 pairs of my shoes were flats. But I didn't argue. I carried my shoes to the bedroom and walked through my own house in Martha's cheap foam slippers. Her rules multiplied. Eggs had to come from a specific brand, anything else was fishy. Curtains had to be floral, my gray blackout curtains were too gloomy. She covered my leather sofa with a polyester throw covered in daisies, the kind that slid off if you looked at it wrong. I worked 3 hours commuting each day, came home to cook, and went to church with her on Sundays even though I wasn't religious, Because she said skipping church made me a bad wife. She sat beside me in the pew and listened to the pastor preach about wives submitting to their husbands. She smiled through the whole service, occasionally looking over at me. You understand what that means, right? Submission. I nodded. I nodded for 3 years. I got 1 promotion, 1 raise, and I turned down 7 late shifts and 4 business trips because of those mandatory family dinners. Laura, my boss, a German-American woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, pulled me into her office one afternoon. Megan, you've got the skills for a regional director role. But you've rejected travel assignments 4 times in a row. I can't put you on the shortlist if you keep that up. What's going on? Family obligations, I said. Laura looked at me for a long time. She pulled up my attendance record. You've taken 23 days of personal leave this year, all marked family care. Megan, is it your mother-in-law? Does she need round-the-clock care? I couldn't answer. I'm not prying, Laura said. I'm telling you, your career has a window. Those windows don't stay open forever. Think about what you want. I went back to my desk and stared at my screen. That night, Martha showed up for dinner again. She took 2 bites, pushed her plate aside, and said, Megan, you've been getting lazier with your cooking. This is too salty. You must be working too hard. Maybe you should quit that job. It's not like you earn much anyway. Better to stay home and take care of Brian properly. Brian nodded along. She's right. Your job doesn't pay that well, and you're always tired. I put down my chopsticks. Mom, I just got promoted and I'm making $5,200 a month after taxes now. Martha sniffed. 5,000? Brian clears more than that on a single project. What's the point? You'd be better off quitting and focusing on having a baby. Children. That was the beginning of the end. She polished off my expensive face cream from the bathroom shelf, 2 bottles, bought during Black Friday sales for $260. I noticed 3 days later. Oh, she said, I thought you'd left it there for everyone to use. I liked it, so I kept using it. Buy another one. I bought another one. She used it. I bought a 3rd. She used that too. Eventually I started hiding 1 bottle in my dresser and leaving the other in the bathroom for her. She called me stingy. She started introducing me to her friends as my daughter-in-law from Hick, Texas. Doesn't know anything about how things are done in a real city. I smiled and nodded. She never left my house empty-handed. Eggs, milk, bread, pickles I'd made myself, fruit from my fruit bowl. Once she grabbed a package I was planning to return, a dress that didn't fit, and when she opened it, she said, "Oh, this is my size." And took it. That dress was $180. I didn't ask for it back. She had me pay for her roof repair, $8,000. Brian's short on cash this month, she said. Just cover it and he'll pay you back. I paid. She told the neighbors her son had bought her a new roof. She had me pay for her dental insurance renewal when she forgot. Just cover it, Megan, Brian said. I'll get you next month. I paid. Next month, business was slow. The month after that, I stopped asking. She had me buy her 4 round-trip tickets to Seattle to visit her sister. $2,000 total. I'll reimburse you when I get back, she said. She came back and said, I didn't know you were waiting on the money. I already spent it. Each item by itself was small. Together, when I finally ran the numbers, they shocked even me. 9 years. $154,047. And that didn't count the food she'd taken, the unpaid domestic labor, the career opportunities I'd sacrificed. By my third year of trying, I'd moved on to IVF. The doctor had been blunt, both fallopian tubes were blocked. Natural conception was under 5%. IVF was the only way. First attempt, 9 eggs retrieved, 5 fertilized, 2 transferred. Failed. Second attempt, 7 eggs, 4 fertilized, 3 transferred. Failed. Third attempt, the doctor changed protocols. 12 eggs retrieved, 8 fertilized, 2 transferred. One of them took. I was pregnant. It was the closest I'd come to happiness in 30 days. When that pregnancy test showed 2 lines, I stood in the bathroom shaking so badly I nearly dropped the plastic stick. I ran to the bedroom and shook Brian awake. He looked at the test, turned it over, squinted, and said, "Is this real?" I told him it was. The doctor had confirmed. He said, "Oh," and rolled over to go back to sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at his back, and felt a cold draft I couldn't name. Martha showed up that afternoon. For the first time in 9 years, she didn't lecture me. She didn't inspect my refrigerator or criticize my cleaning. She sat on the sofa with her hands in her lap and said, "What do you feel like eating? I'll make it for you." It was the only time she ever offered to cook for me. I made it to 9 weeks. Then the bleeding started. I went to the hospital, and the ultrasound screen showed no heartbeat. The doctor said the pregnancy had stopped developing. I needed a D&C. Lying on the hospital bed, I called Brian while the nurse asked if I wanted family present. He said he was meeting a client. Couldn't get away. I told him I was about to have surgery. "You don't need me there," he said. "It's just a procedure." I said the doctor wanted a family member to sign the consent form. "Can't you just sign it yourself?" he asked. I signed it myself. The D&C took no time at all. But when I woke up, I was shaking uncontrollably, my teeth chattering so hard the nurse piled 2 extra blankets on me and they still didn't help. I lay in recovery, watching a man in the next bed hold his wife's hand and whisper, "You're okay, you're okay." My phone buzzed. Brian's text, "How's it going? Done yet?" Mom asked if you're coming home for dinner. She made chicken soup. I stared at the message. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, "Hey, text me back. Mom's waiting." I typed, "Just finished. Still in recovery." He answered instantly, "Mom says you should come home. Her soup's going to get cold." Half an hour later, a third message, "She says you're still shaking because of the anesthesia. Don't stay at the hospital. Come home and drink the soup." I turned off my phone and rolled onto my side. My medical file was on the bedside table, my name and age and procedure typed neatly on the label. I pulled the file onto the pillow next to me and held it like a teddy bear. The anesthesia hadn't fully worn off. I drifted somewhere between sleep and consciousness, dreaming of my childhood kitchen in Texas, my mother frying chicken, the oil sizzling, me crouched on the floor waiting for the first crispy piece. I woke up with my face soaked in tears. When the nurse walked me out that afternoon, July Florida heat hit me like a brick wall, but I was still shivering under my jacket. I called an Uber from the curb. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Miss, you don't look so good. Sure you don't want to go back inside and sit for a while?" "I'm fine. Just drive." Back at the gray-blue house, Martha was waiting in the living room. A bowl of chicken soup sat on the coffee table, a film of cold oil congealed across the surface. She pushed it toward me. Drink. I looked at that cold bowl of soup. 9 years, and this was the first meal she'd ever cooked for me. But I wasn't hungry. Mom, I'm going to lie down. She stood up sharply. Stop right there. I spent the whole morning at the market picking out a chicken for this soup, and you're not even going to try it? What kind of attitude is that? Mom, I just had surgery. That's exactly why you need to drink it. You're weak. How are you going to carry the next one if you don't build your strength? The next one. Those 2 words hit me like splinters. I turned around and looked at her. Mom. I just lost a baby. Can I please have 5 minutes to breathe? Martha's mouth twisted, that expression I knew so well. The one that meant she was about to say something cruel. Breathe. You're 31. If you keep breathing, you'll be too old to get pregnant again. Don't think just because you conceived once you're set. Losing it means there's something wrong with you, and you need to work harder. I know a Chinese herbalist. I'll take you tomorrow. I looked at her. Floral print blouse. Perfectly coiffed hair. Standing in my living room with a bowl of cold soup on the table. There was no worry in her face, no empathy. Just impatience. Mom, I said, I'm not going. Her face darkened. Megan, what's that supposed to mean? I went to all this trouble to find this specialist, and you're turning me down? Do you know how many people I had to call to get this appointment? You think you can just reject everything I do for you? Barren bitch. She said it aloud. I looked at her, and I smiled. The smile must have been unsettling, because she took a half step backward. Martha, I said, keeping my voice level, I just had surgery. The anesthesia hasn't fully worn off. I'm still in pain. And you're standing in my house calling me a barren bitch. For 9 years you've been taking my money, eating my food, and berating me for something I can't control. What exactly have you given me that I should be grateful for? Her mouth opened and closed, searching for a retort that didn't come. I didn't wait for her to find one. I turned and walked upstairs. Halfway up, I heard Brian come in through the back door, and Martha's voice from the living room, Brian. She just screamed at me. I made her soup and she screamed at me and walked away. Do something. Brian's voice, calm down, Mom. I'll talk to her. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I walked into the bedroom and locked the door. Megan. He pounded on the door. Open up. You need to apologize to Mom. She went to so much trouble for you, and you just... I stayed silent. Megan. She's crying downstairs. I sat on the bed, holding a pillow in my lap. The pillow was wet with tears and sweat. I looked at my hands, at the purpled bruise on the back of my hand from the foreline. 5 minutes of pounding. Then footsteps retreating. The television turned on downstairs, a soccer game. That night, I opened my notes app and added a line. July 14, 2022. Deancy surgery. Brian didn't come to the hospital. Martha called me a barren bitch. I didn't fight back. Starting today, I'm done forgiving. After the 3rd failed IVF attempt, Brian started staying out late. He said it was work. But one night I passed by his office at 9:30 and saw every light off inside. I didn't ask. I knew it would be a lie. Martha started coming around less. 3 times a week became once, then once every 2 weeks. I thought maybe she was having some kind of revelation. I later found out she was busy looking for Brian's new fertile wife. Dolores slipped up and told me at the supermarket. I hear Martha's been spending time down at the Southside community, she said, her eyes darting away from mine. There's a young lady who works at the bank down there. Very nice girl, apparently. I was holding a carton of strawberries. My fingers tightened slowly around the plastic. Dolores saw my face and backpedaled. Oh, I'm just gossiping. Don't take it seriously. I smiled and said I wouldn't. That night I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coasters, more of Martha's floral print decor. One of them had a tea ring dried into the surface, like a pale age line in the wood. I reached out and touched it. Then I went to Brian's home office. His computer was still on. He never locked it. A folder called Property Documents was open on the screen. I clicked through. 3 properties, a single family in Tampa's suburbs, a house in a better school district, and a third, deeded not to Brian, but to Martha. I opened the file for Martha's property. Purchase contract, mortgage application, down payment receipt. The down payment, $10,000 from the company's main account. Labeled year-end bonus. Martha was never a shareholder. I didn't close the browser. I opened a blank document and started screenshotting. Every page, every receipt, every transfer detail. I saved them all into a folder named 2023. When I was done, I shut the computer down and went to bed. Brian came in after midnight, smelling of whiskey. He rolled over and was asleep in seconds. I lay on my side, looking at our wedding photo on the bedside table. The girl in the photo was 25, glowing in a white dress, clutching a bouquet of white roses. Brian beside her, blue suit slightly askew, tie crooked, but smiling a big, open smile. I turned the frame face down. It came on a Friday night. Brian came home early, before 6, wearing a fresh shirt and combed hair. He sat on the sofa with a stack of papers on the coffee table. He was already sitting there when I walked in, hands clasped, looking like a man who'd rehearsed a speech and forgotten it. Megan. Sit down. We need to talk. I hung my bag by the door and walked over, sitting in the armchair across from him, not the seat beside him where I normally sat. What's going on? He pushed the papers toward me. The top page read, Divorce Agreement. I looked at those words and felt my heartbeat stutter. But my face stayed still. Brian. Why? He fidgeted, rubbing his thumbs against his forefingers. Megan, we're just not working out. Mom's right. I want kids. We've tried for years and it hasn't happened. I'm not blaming you, it's just. I think maybe we need a different path. A different path. I let the words settle. What kind of path? He flipped to the property division section. I keep the house. It's mine, premarital. You keep the car. Savings, you can have 2,000. Company's mine. That's separate. I read the key line, the wife voluntarily waives all claims to marital property and all associated rights. 9 years. 154,000 I'd paid into this household. Countless hours of unpaid labor. The business books I'd built from scratch. And the agreement said, voluntarily waives. Brian, I said, who built the company's accounting system? He looked away. You did. Who filed the tax returns? You. Do you have any idea how much money your company made in the last 3 years? He didn't answer. The consulting fees you paid your mother. You think I didn't know about those? His eyes snapped to mine, suddenly alert, afraid. How did you? How? I laughed, a dry sound with no humor. Brian, I set up the online banking. I created the password. I linked the accounts. From 2019 to today, I've seen every single wire transfer you've ever made. Did you seriously think you could hide this from me? His face went pale. He pushed the papers closer to me. Megan. Just sign. Let's end this clean. You're an attractive woman. You'll find someone else. I stared at him. 9 years. You're asking me to walk away with nothing, and you're telling me I'll find someone else. He dropped his eyes to the table. I couldn't see his expression. Just his fingers, rubbing endlessly against his knees. I picked up the pen. Cheap black ballpoint. I unscrewed the cap and signed my name, cleanly, on the last page. Then I capped it and put the pen back. Brian looked up, startled. He'd expected a fight. You signed? Yes. He picked up the agreement and checked the signature page twice, 3 times. Then his shoulders released a long, heavy breath. When are you moving out? End of the month. Can you, maybe sooner? He glanced at me and looked away. Mom was thinking of showing the house to someone this weekend. Showing the house. I hadn't even left, and he was already scheduling the next occupant. Brian, I said, is it that girl from the bank? His face flushed. Not yet. Just looking around. Fine. I'll move this weekend. Tell your mother she can show it after I'm gone. I went upstairs and started packing. 9 years of clothing fit into 2 suitcases. I copied the 2023 folder onto my USB drive. Then I grabbed my notebooks, all 5 of them, and put them in my silver lockbox. Brian was still sitting in the living room, the divorce papers in his hands. When I walked down the stairs with both suitcases, he finally stood up. He walked to the front door and stood there, blocking it for a moment. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something. Then he closed it again. He just looked at my luggage. I opened the door myself. Florida's evening breeze rolled in, carrying the salt smell of the bay. I didn't look back. I drove to a motel. Before I started the engine, I did 3 things. First, I opened my notes app and wrote, September 8, 2023, signed divorce papers. Left with nothing. Second, I tested my phone's recording app. Third, I texted Monica, officer, evidence is ready. I'll come in tomorrow morning. She replied 10 seconds later. I'll be here at 9. I pulled out of the driveway. In my rearview mirror, I saw Martha's car coming in from the opposite direction. She was driving over to inspect her son's progress, to plan the showing. I accelerated and merged onto the main road. 9 years. Goodbye. I moved into a basement apartment. $800 a month, in a 60-year-old house in an older Tampa neighborhood. The ceiling was low enough that I could touch it if I reached up. A crack ran from floor to ceiling, patched with white spackle that bulged like a centipede every time it rained. The mattress cost $40 at a thrift store. 2 broken springs on the left side tilted me sideways if I lay too close to the edge. I rolled up a bath towel and wedged it under the sagging part. Good enough. First night, I lay on that tilted bed and stared up at a water stain on the ceiling. It was shaped like Florida. I thought, even the ceiling is reminding me where I came from. 7 days. I stayed in that basement for 7 days without leaving. 6 takeout containers stacked by the door. An entire grocery bag full of energy bar wrappers. I did one thing for 7 days, digitized and systematized every piece of evidence I had. First, the 5 notebooks. I entered every single line into an Excel spreadsheet. Date, amount, category, person involved, notes. 9 years, thousands of entries. My wrist hurt so badly by day 3 that I bought a compression sleeve at the drugstore and kept typing. Total household advances, $154,047. Martha's direct withdrawals, over $60,000. Business advances, to Brian that he never repaid, over $90,000. Second, bank statements. The company had 4 accounts. I'd set up every one of them, and Brian had never changed the passwords. I knew them by heart. 3 years of statements, 1,200 transactions. I flagged every suspicious one: transfers to Martha, transfers to a shell company Martha had registered under the name Walker Consulting, transfers to real estate agents. The consulting fees totaled $352,000 over 3 years. Martha had never paid a cent in self-employment tax. Her consulting company had no employees, no tax filings. Third, the audio files. 27 recordings, 14 hours. I went through each one again and flagged every key moment. Martha calling me barren. Martha forcing the herbal remedy. Martha demanding money. Brian backing her up. Fourth, screenshots of text conversations. Every message I'd kept for 9 years. Company's short this month, can you cover payroll? My tuition? You said you'd handle it. Mom's just old, you need to be more understanding. By day 6, I had a master spreadsheet with 3 columns. Advances made by Megan Holloway to household/company, $154,047. Funds improperly transferred to Martha Walker from company accounts, $352,000. Properties purchased with these misappropriated funds, 3. Total down payments over $280,000. No explanation needed. The numbers spoke for themselves. I packaged everything into a folder named E2023-0892. Total size, 3.7 gigabytes. I saved it to 2 USBs. One for Monica. One for me. I called Monica. Officer, the evidence package is ready. How do I get it to you? She sent me an email address. Also, get yourself a lawyer. The criminal side is my job, but the civil side, recovering your personal money, you need representation. There's a guy I recommend. Kevin O'Brien. Commercial and Family Law. Call him. I sent the file. When the "Send Successful" notification popped up, I stared at it for a long time. I closed the laptop, lay back on the tilted mattress. This time, I didn't even need the towel wedge. One thought, I wasn't just enduring anymore. I was acting. The next morning, I went to Kevin O'Brien's office. He was in his 60s, gray hair and gold-rimmed glasses, shelves of legal volumes packed from floor to ceiling. He was already flipping through my printed materials when I walked in. Sit, he said. He read for 20 minutes without speaking. I sat in the chair across from his desk and watched him annotate margins in tiny, precise handwriting. He closed the folder, cleaned his glasses, put them back on. Ms. Holloway. This is the most complete private evidence collection I've seen in 40 years of practice. You've connected every financial transaction to a documented paper trail. You're not asking me to find your case for you, you're asking me to present it. And I can do that. What are my chances? He smiled a small, honest smile. Commercial fraud, your evidence would make a textbook case. The civil side, your advances are supported by bank records. The divorce agreement's fairness is extremely questionable, given documented coercion. The law in Florida takes domestic contributions seriously. Your 9 years of work count. He slid a retainer agreement across the desk. I'll take this on contingency. 15% of what we recover. I signed. The asset freeze came through on a Tuesday. Kevin called me in the morning. The court approved the freeze. All accounts, properties, vehicles. They can't buy groceries without hitting a blocked card. I took the afternoon off. I went back to the house. Kevin had told me, under the freeze order, you have the right to retrieve personal belongings. If you see them trying to dispose of or damage anything, document it. I brought my phone and a new audio recorder. I pushed open the front door, and I heard voices from the living room. Martha's voice, syrupy sweet, and the natural light in the master bedroom is just incredible. The baby's room can be right next door, you'll hear every sound, perfect for those midnight feedings. Another voice, soft and warm, Martha, are you sure there's no lien on the property? I heard Brian's ex-wife is still technically connected to. Oh, that's all settled. She signed a clean release. Not a single claim on this house. You have nothing to worry about. Once you have that baby, this house will be perfect for you. I pushed the living room door open. Martha was sitting on the sofa in her favorite floral blouse, holding a teacup. A blonde woman sat across from her, visibly pregnant, 5 or 6 months along, carrying a cup of tea and looking slightly uncomfortable. A fruit platter sat on the coffee table. My fruit platter. The blonde saw me first. She froze. Oh. You're. Martha turned. Her smile collapsed. You. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Personal belongings, I said. And Martha, you do know this property is under a court-ordered freeze, right? Martha's face reddened. Freeze. This is my son's house. The blonde stood up quickly. Martha, you said this was all clear. Martha grabbed her arm. Jenny, don't listen to her. She's just trying to cause trouble. The divorce was finalized. She signed everything away. I leaned against the doorframe, unhurried. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Mom's right, we're not compatible. I need someone who can have children, just sign it for now. Later, if we want to get back together. Brian's voice, every syllable clear. While the recording played, Martha's face went from red to white to gray. She lunged for my phone. I sidestepped, and she went sprawling onto the sofa, her tea splashing all over her floral blouse. Jenny was already reaching for her purse. Martha, I'm going to go. You need to sort this out before I look at anything else. Jenny. Jenny, wait. Martha scrambled off the sofa, but Jenny had already pulled the front door open and stepped through. The slam of the door echoed through the hallway. Martha turned slowly to face me. Her hair had come loose. Her blouse was a disaster of tea stains. One slipper had fallen off. Megan, she said, her voice dropping low and raw, what do you want from me? Martha, I said, on the first day I met you, you gave me a $9.99 towel from Target and told me that was my welcome. For 9 years, I tried to figure out what I'd done wrong to make you hate me that much. And then I realized, it wasn't about me. It was just that you thought you could. You thought you could do whatever you wanted and there wouldn't be any consequences. I took a step toward her. Now there are consequences. You're finally finding out what it costs to be the kind of person who treats another human being like dirt and calls it family. I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard things smashing: cups, a vase, the fruit platter. Something hit the inside of the front door as I pulled it shut. I stood on the front steps and called Kevin. I went back to the house. Martha was showing it to a buyer, a pregnant woman. I recorded the whole thing. Good, Kevin said. That's evidence of attempting to dispose of frozen assets. Also, the timing suggests the divorce was executed under coercion. Showing the house before you'd even vacated? It's a pattern. I smiled. I figured. I got to the driveway just as a news van pulled up. A young woman jumped out with a microphone, followed by a cameraman. Megan Holloway? I'm Emily Harper from Tampa Local News. We received a tip that you've filed a lawsuit against your ex-husband and mother-in-law for fraud. Could we ask you a few questions? I looked at her, then at the camera's red recording light. Yes. But I have one condition: you play every word unedited. I'm telling the truth, and I want that on the record. Emily nodded. Absolutely. I pulled the audio recorder from my collar. I'd been recording since I walked in. I looked at Emily's camera and spoke. My name is Megan Holloway. I'm suing my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law for commercial fraud. They've transferred over $350,000 from a company account, funds that were never theirs to take. I'm also seeking recovery of $154,000 that I advanced over 9 years of marriage. 9 years of compromise didn't earn me respect. Today, I found my mother-in-law showing a pregnant stranger the house I haven't even fully moved out of, telling her I was barren and needed to step aside. I want everyone who's ever been in this situation to see, when you pick up the law and hold people accountable, the bullies don't look so tough anymore. Emily asked, Ms. Holloway, is there anything you'd like to say directly to the defendants? I looked at the camera. Martha. When you told me to sign away my life and get out, you said I wouldn't get a penny. I want you to remember every word you said, because I recorded all of them. See you in court. That night, the local news aired the full 3-minute interview. The headline: Ex-daughter-in-law sues former husband and mother-in-law for fraud. Within 4 hours, the story had exploded. Local forum threads hit 200,000 views. Someone found Martha's Facebook account, photos of her drinking wine, wearing new clothes, standing in front of the Tampa house with a giant smile. The comments turned overnight. You were drinking wine while your daughter-in-law was cooking for you? That dress you're wearing was probably paid for with stolen company money. You're standing in front of a house whose down payment was fraudulently obtained? Martha deleted her account the same night, but screenshots had already been saved. Dolores and Betty came under fire too. Dolores posted a statement: I have no association with Martha Walker. I had no knowledge of her actions. I condemn all forms of domestic abuse. Betty set her account to private. 3 days later, her daughter was doxxed. Parents from the school where she taught demanded she publicly denounce her mother. She moved to Orlando. When a wall falls, even the cracks run away. The pretrial hearing came on a Tuesday. I wore a dark gray suit, discount rack, originally $240, marked down to $90. I'd pulled my hair into a low ponytail, silver studs in my ears. Martha wore a cream-colored pantsuit with a pearl brooch at the collar. Her hair had been freshly dyed, a golden brown that couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Brian wore a navy suit, but he'd lost so much weight the shoulders sagged. Their lawyer was a pudgy man in a brightly patterned jacket, already sweating. The prosecutor was Samantha, a woman in her 40s with a sharp bob and dark-framed glasses. Judge Carter was older, white hair, a calm and deliberate manner. Samantha opened. Your Honor, the prosecution has submitted a complete inventory of evidence, 3 years of company account statements, covering 1,207 transactions, the personal accounts of the defendants showing wire transfers totaling $352,000, and copies of fraudulent service invoices and purchase documents for 3 properties. Also, Megan Holloway's personal advances over 9 years, $154,047. All tied to specific bank records and corroborated by email and text correspondence. And audio evidence, 27 recordings, 14 hours in total. Judge Carter nodded. Defense, any objections? The pattern jacket lawyer stood. Your Honor, the defense has concerns about the legality of the audio recordings. The plaintiff recorded conversations without the defendant's consent. Samantha responded immediately. Your Honor, Florida is a one-party consent state. The plaintiff was a participant in these conversations. She was entitled to record. All recordings were made in her own home or public spaces. The law is clear. Samantha concluded, the prosecution recommends charges of felony commercial fraud. We are seeking 3 to 7 years for Martha Walker and 1 to 3 years for Brian Walker. Martha's legs gave way. She gripped the table, her face white. Defense has 30 days to consider a plea arrangement. The asset freeze remains in place. Court adjourned. As everyone stood, Martha attempted to rise. She got halfway up and sat back down. Hard. There was a distinct smell. Even in the courtroom's air-conditioned space, it carried. Her cream-colored pantsuit, a dark, spreading stain at the seat. She'd wet herself. She realized it as soon as she looked down. She looked up at me. Her expression went from shock to shame to something like despair. The bailiffs moved in. She fought them, clinging to the table, making awful rasping sounds. They finally lifted her out, her feet dragging on the floor. I watched Brian follow, his footsteps unsteady. At the door, he glanced back. His eyes met mine for just a second. Something like, "You've won." The trial itself was different. I wore a navy suit, better cut, with the silver brooch at my collar. Kevin was beside me. Martha was brought in wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. Her hair was half gray, half faded dye. Brian wore a cheap navy suit, sleeves a little short. He sat hunched, his hands cuffed to the table. Samantha opened. Your Honor, esteemed jury, this case is not about a broken marriage. It's about money. $352,000, to be exact. Funds that were transferred from a legitimate business to the personal accounts of Martha Walker, disguised as consulting fees. She flipped through her evidence. Then Samantha played the audio. Martha's voice echoed in the courtroom, Megan, you've tried 3 times and none of them worked. Let's face it. Why not just step aside? I know a girl who works at the bank, she's healthy and she's willing. You should just divorce Brian and let him have a real family. Brian, Megan, we talked about this, maybe it's for the best. The courtroom went silent. A young woman on the jury put her hand over her mouth. Samantha played the second recording, the herbal remedy, the vomiting, Brian on the phone to his mother. The young woman on the jury was crying. She was trying to hide it, but her shoulders shook. Samantha addressed the jury again. This was the day after the plaintiff had a D&C after losing a pregnancy. Her husband was in the hallway, calling his mother to report that the plaintiff had thrown up. She turned toward Martha. Mrs. Walker, you told her to step aside. You showed a pregnant woman her house. You made her sign an agreement she didn't understand. And now you're asking a jury to believe you were the victim? Martha couldn't answer. The jury deliberated for just under an hour. When they returned, the foreman stood and read the verdict. On the charge of commercial fraud, guilty. On the charge of tax evasion, guilty. On the charge of embezzlement, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy, guilty. Sentence: Martha Walker, 3 years in state prison, no parole. Restitution of $352,000 plus an equal fine. And $154,000 in compensation to the plaintiff, plus $50,000 in emotional damages. Brian Walker, 1 year suspended, 2 years probation. Full restitution to the plaintiff. Martha's screaming started before the gavel came down. She lunged toward me, her arms outstretched, the bailiffs hauling her backward. Megan. Megan, please. I'll give you everything. Just stop this. The bailiffs pulled her out. The heavy door closed behind her. Brian stood. He tried to walk toward me. Kevin stepped in front of him. Mr. Walker, you'll keep your distance. Any communication goes through my office. Brian's mouth opened. No sound came out. He looked at me, a long, empty look, then shuffled out. My mother was waiting in the hall. She ran to me and wrapped me in a hug so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Outside, the sun was blinding. Emily Harper caught up to me near the courthouse steps. Ms. Holloway, any comment? I looked at her camera. 9 years. My mother-in-law got 3 years. My ex-husband got probation and a bill. And to anyone who's been in my shoes, your kindness needs a sharp edge. Preferably one the law can recognize. 3 months after the trial, I posted a photo on my social media. It was my kitchen, a small apartment I'd bought with the first installment of my restitution. Open plan, the stovetop by a window with a pot of basil on the sill. In the picture, a pot of tomato soup was simmering. In the corner, curled up on the windowsill, was the orange cat I'd adopted from the shelter. His name was Judge. The caption, 9 years later. A kitchen where nobody criticizes the soup. The comments came fast. Thousands. You're the role model every wife with a difficult mother-in-law needs. That audio recording was brutal, you're a warrior. A reply from Laura, when's your office open for business? I've got clients waiting. I closed my phone. Judge jumped onto my lap, a heavy ball of orange fur. I ran my hand over his back and felt his steady breathing. The kitchen was quiet. The soup simmered. I thought about the 9 years that had taken me to this kitchen, a kitchen I'd chosen, a kitchen I'd paid for, a kitchen where nobody had a spare key. Brian called one last time. He'd used a new number. I answered because I didn't recognize it. Megan. His voice was thin, hoarse. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Okay. She wants to see you. Mom. Her blood pressure's been bad, the prison's worried. She wants to apologize to your face. No. Megan, she's 63. She's been in for months. She's lost so much weight. She knows she was wrong. Please, just come see her once. I held the phone to my ear and leaned against my kitchen counter. Brian. If the court hadn't convicted her, what would she be doing right now? Showing that woman the house? Posting photos on social media? Would she be calling me to say she was sorry? He didn't answer. Then why should I believe her apology now? Is it real, or is it just that she's in prison and she wants to get out? He sobbed once, a harsh, ragged sound. Megan. I was a coward. I let her do all of that. I stood by and watched. I know I can't ask you to. Then don't ask. He was silent for a long time. I don't hate you, I said. Hate takes too much energy. But I'm not going to be the one who makes her feel better about what she did. Tell her that. I hung up. I blocked his number. Judge was looking up at me. I patted his head. No more "I'm sorry" in this house. Just to go ahead and no, and this is mine. It's been over a year now. I'm running a small financial consulting firm from a tiny office in downtown Tampa. It's nothing fancy, 20 square meters, a good used desk, a window with green vines growing on the outside wall. But every client who comes to me says the same thing: I heard about your case. If you can handle that, you can handle my books. I've been in touch with Kevin occasionally. He tells me Martha is still in prison, but she's applied for early release on medical grounds. The judge hasn't approved it yet. Her restitution payments are being deducted from her pension. She's paying me back slowly, month by month. I ran into Dolores at the supermarket once. She was pushing a cart full of discounted toilet paper. Her hair was dyed an aggressive red-brown. She looked at me like I was a ghost. Megan. Hi. How are you? I haven't seen you in ages. Fine. You? Oh, fine, fine. Just doing some shopping. She was clutching her cart handle like a life raft. Betty, you remember Betty, her daughter moved away. She's alone now. I try to visit sometimes. I said, I'm glad you're keeping in touch. She nodded frantically and hurried away. Her cart banged into a display of paper towels on the way out. I watched her disappear down the aisle, then selected my dozen organic eggs, $8.99 for a dozen, the same brand Martha had taken from my fridge so many times. That night, I made a pasta dish. I opened the window and let the Florida breeze blow through. The vines on the outside wall rustled. Judge sat on the windowsill, his tail curling and uncurling. I sat at my kitchen island and ate dinner. The food was warm, my own, and nobody complained about the seasoning. I don't think much about the old house anymore, the one with the gray-blue siding and the small kitchen. I think about my mother's pickled cucumbers, the ones my father sends in mason jars. I think about the basil plant on my windowsill. I think about Judge, and how he's gotten so round he can barely jump up onto the counter. I paid for this counter with my own money. I chose the color of the cabinets. I chose the distance between the burners and the edge of the stovetop. Nobody told me what to buy, where to put things, or when to have dinner. The silver lockbox is still on the highest shelf in my bedroom closet, but it doesn't hold evidence anymore. It holds my lease documents, Judge's vaccination records, a photograph of my parents, and a note I wrote myself. From now on, if it doesn't feel right, it's a no. I'm not the same person who signed those divorce papers. I'm not the same person who counted out $8.99 in organic eggs and wrote it down in a notebook at midnight. That woman knew she had to survive. This woman knows she has a life. Florida's sun still sets in streaks of gold and pink. My kitchen faces west, and most evenings, the whole room fills with warm light. The basil plant absorbs it. Judge absorbs it, sprawled on the windowsill with his belly exposed. I lean against the counter with a cup of tea and I watch the light fade. Some days, the quiet is strange. For 9 years, the background noise was criticism, demands, footsteps in my hallway that didn't belong to me. Now, the background noise is the hum of the refrigerator, the buzz of a neighbor's lawnmower, judge's occasional snore. It's not dramatic. It's not a movie ending. But it's mine. It's all mine. I don't accept apologies from people who don't understand what they're apologizing for. I don't open mail from prison. I don't answer blocked numbers. I learned something from those 9 years. It took a while, longer than I'd like to admit. But now I know, you can forgive people without letting them back in. You can understand why they did what they did without accepting it. And you can build a whole new kitchen, with wide open space, and never let anyone else keep a key. That's the truth, plain and simple. My name is Megan Holloway. I'm 34. I'm a business owner, a cat owner, and a person who no longer apologizes for things that weren't her fault. If you're in the middle of something like what I went through, if you're counting up your own version of $8.99 eggs and torn up photo albums, just know that the count doesn't make you small. It makes you ready. And when you're ready, you can walk out, and you can start over. It's hard. God, it's hard. But it's possible. I'm living proof. And my kitchen is open to anyone who needs to see what that looks like.